The United States has, for a second night, launched dozens of air raids targeting at least 7 provinces. The strikes, which began on Saturday, have killed at least 53 people. U.S. President Donald Trump ordered the large-scale attacks on Yemen's Houthi rebels after the group threatened to resume attacks on Israeli-linked ships in the Red Sea in response to Israel's ongoing blockade of the Gaza Strip. This is first U.S. strikes against Yemen's Houthis since Donald Trump took office. This weekend's strikes killed at least 53 people including children, and wounded others. The campaign is likely to continue, part of a wider pressure campaign by Trump now targeting the Houthis' main benefactor, Iran, as well. The Houthis, who have attacked Israel and Red Sea shipping throughout Israel's bombardment of Gaza, said children were among those killed. Attacks on Sana'a, as well as on areas in Sada, al-Baida and Radar, killed at least 53 people and wounded 101, most of whom were children and women, Health Ministry spokesperson Anas al-Asbahi said. Footage on Houthi media showed children and a woman among those being treated in a hospital emergency room, including a dazed girl with blackened legs wrapped in bandages. Trump, in a post on social media, vowed to use overwhelming lethal force to end the Houthi attacks, which the rebels say are in solidarity with Palestinians in Gaza. The Houthi rebels attacked over 100 merchant vessels with missiles and drones, sinking 2 vessels and killing 4 sailors, from November 2023 until January this year. Their leadership described the attacks as aiming to end the Israeli war against Hamas in the Gaza Strip. The campaign also greatly raised the Houthis' profile in the wider Arab world and tamped down on public criticism against their human rights abuses and crackdowns on dissent and aid workers. U.S. President Donald Trump looks on as military strikes are launched against Yemen's Houthis over the group's attacks against Red Sea shipping, at an unspecified location in this handout image released on March 15, 2025. Trump also warned Iran that it needed to immediately halt support for the group. He said if Iran threatened the United States, America will hold you fully accountable and we won't be nice about it. The unfolding strikes, which one U.S. official told Reuters might continue for weeks, represent the biggest U.S. military operation in the Middle East since Trump took office in January. It came as the U.S. ramps up sanctions pressure on Tehran while trying to bring it to the negotiating table over its nuclear program. The Houthis' political bureau described the attacks as a war crime. Our Yemeni armed forces are fully prepared to respond to escalation with escalation, it said in a statement. Residents in Sana'a said the strikes hit a building in a Houthi stronghold. The Houthis, an armed movement that took control of most of Yemen over the past decade, have launched scores of attacks on ships off its coast since November 2023, disrupting global commerce and setting the U.S. military on a costly campaign to intercept missiles and drones that have burned through stocks of U.S. air defenses. A Pentagon spokesperson said the Houthis have attacked U.S. warships 174 times and commercial vessels 145 times since 2023. The Houthis say the attacks are in solidarity with Palestinians over Israel's military onslaught in Gaza with Hamas. Iran's other allies, Hamas and Hezbollah in Lebanon, have been severely weakened by Israel since the start of the Gaza conflict. Syria's Bashar al-Assad, who was closely aligned with Tehran, was overthrown by rebels in December. But throughout, Yemen's Houthis have remained resilient and often on the offensive, sinking 2 vessels, seizing another and killing at least 4 seafarers in an offensive that disrupted global shipping, forcing firms to reroute to longer and more expensive journeys around southern Africa. Under former President Joe Biden, the US and the United Kingdom began a series of airstrikes against the Houthis starting in January 2024. A December report by the International Institute for Strategic Studies said the US and its partners struck the Houthis over 260 times up to that point. US military officials during that period acknowledged having a far wider target list for possible strikes. While the Biden administration didn't go too far into explaining its targeting, analysts believe officials largely were trying to avoid civilian casualties and not rekindle Yemen's stalemated war, which pits the Houthis and their allies against the country's exiled government and their local and international allies, like Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates. The U.S. administration of then-President Joe Biden had sought to degrade the Houthis' ability to attack vessels off its coast but limited the U.S. actions. U.S. officials, speaking on condition of anonymity, say Trump has authorized a more aggressive approach. The strikes on Saturday were carried out in part by fighter aircraft from the Harry S. Truman aircraft carrier, which is in the Red Sea, officials said. The U.S. military's Central Command, which oversees troops in the Middle East, described Saturday's strikes as the start of a large-scale operation across Yemen.